cities and regions. And on the other side, there are slow changes that are not so, they are not noticed at one point so clearly. They are coming very slowly. It's sea level rise. It's millimeters or centimeters per year. But if you add it for decades, suddenly it becomes an amount that is very important for cities that are on the seaside. Temperature rise, the same. Or rainfall patterns change slowly, or just the ecosystems change. What fruits or what crops can grow in a system, what flora and fauna is living there. These are slow changes that are even worse to communicate, because people in cities and regions, politicians, they can hardly see it. It's a lot of discussion. Is it really happening, or is it just scientific idea of some change? But for us as planners, these again pose very interesting theoretical questions. How to integrate those changes into planning processes, and how to make them able to have a dialogue about them and to get awareness from them. Let's try to get it a bit more concrete. Metropolitan region of Hamburg, that's the area where we work quite a lot, always in comparison with other regions, but that's one of the focus areas. It's an area of 4.3 million inhabitants, a lot of different administrative structures. Germany has this federal system, which makes it not easy to have cooperative structures. Hamburg is an own federal state. In the north there is another one, that's Schleswig-Holstein. In the south there's Lower Saxony, another one. And in the east, on the east side, there's East Germany, which was divided by the Iron Curtain and is still not part of the metropolitan region formally, but there are strong cooperation links. But that shows how difficult this area is, because certainly between Hamburg and this eastern German part there are very strong connections, a lot of people traveling, commuters, but they are not part of the metropolitan region up to now. Hamburg is still North Sea coast. Formally it's coast, because the coast reaches till the east of the River Elbe. You see the River Elbe, the blue stream, it goes directly through Hamburg. And in the east of Hamburg, there is a big, not a guide, a barrier. And up to this barrier, it's formally Northern Sea coast. So that means all these storm surges and all these things happening by climate change from sea level rise, they are directly in Hamburg. It's the reason why Hamburg looks a lot on cities like Rotterdam, who are in similar situations. Just to give you an idea where it is in Germany, Berlin is about 115 kilometers southeast, and there you have the idea where you can find Hamburg. Okay, what does it mean, climate change in Hamburg? What are the impacts? On one hand, one of the main important impacts is storm surges and floods. There you can see that's Hamburg. Normally these are areas where you can walk around if you visit Hamburg, not when there are high storm surges. And those storm surges like these are not so seldom. They are happening once or twice a year. In the harbor area, everything is flooded. On the other side, and these storm surges are expected to become heavier. So that will be an important impact from climate change. Then you have rainfall and extreme heavy rain events that will come in. Especially there is a change of rainfall patterns actually. So there is a drastic increase expected in winter. On the other side, there is a decrease in summer. In winter, that means there can be flooding problems and the city has to handle it from its infrastructure. But in summer it becomes quite dry, which is not such a problem for the city of Hamburg. It's mainly a problem for the rural parts around Hamburg who get problems with the lack of water for agriculture, for example. Rise of temperature, heat waves, that might become a problem also for a city like Hamburg if you think years ago, where they had this heat wave that really caused a lot of dead people. Rising temperature, there will be a rise of about nearly 1 to 2 degrees. And extremely heat waves might come during summer, which are in cities like Hamburg also very hot months. But Hamburg is not so strongly touched because, you know, the river Elbe always brings some wind and some colder air into the city. I talked about these dry periods, problems with waterability. That's mostly a problem, as I said, in the region of Hamburg. So how to deal with these impacts, or what with these changes? There's on one hand mitigation, which is a topic that's not new. It has been discussed quite strong since the 1990s, after all these international commitments, and there has been in the 90s really in Germany a very strong movement for this, which slowed down around the century change a bit, but in recent years has become stronger again. And also for urban regional planning, this question of mitigation has become a more important topic. In the 1990s, it was more a topic of sort of environmental discussions. And urban regional planning was not so much involved from my point of view. Maybe it was different in your countries. So today, mitigation again is a very important point, and you can see, if you look at these pictures, there are quite strong links to urban planning, like these on the right side, the question of biking in cities, these bike systems which can be found in many cities worldwide nowadays, or the question of open spaces, of green roofs and things like this, that touch actually urban planning, city planning, and on the other side they are mitigation efforts. On the other side, adaptation seems to be a bit newer in the discussion on urban regional planning. It's absolutely not new if you look at other sectors of public administration, where you have these sectors that deal with natural catastrophes. That's a huge department in Hamburg, for example, that has a lot of plans. They have a lot of measures developed for dealing with, for example, storm surges. But they didn't do it under climate change. They just did it as measures or strategies concerning flood risks. But that's important. It's not a new topic. So if we look at this point from urban regional planning, we have to become aware that there, in recent decades, have already been very strong approaches and efforts concerning these questions. Adaptation means measures to adapt natural and human-made systems to these changes in order to reduce damages and risks of climate change impacts, and also to try to hold the functionality of systems so that they can work quick after these problems. Disaster prevention, flood prevention, and things like this are part of adaptation. So one question that should be of interest for us is, if we look at mitigation from the point of urban regional planning and adaptation, can they fit together? These are not two divided approaches, but in a way, because we deal with both of them, we have to ask how they cope with each other. And one point is that they are a bit different in their characteristics in a way. There's on one hand, there's a different temporal horizon, that adaptation is more on a short-term view, that you can directly look at it, what's happening for storm surges or flood risks on river cities, what can you do in the next years to prevent them, while mitigation has quite a long-term view, and that makes it always a bit more abstract. That's quite difficult for planning strategies. But that's only one point, and I think that might be one point for discussing maybe in the sessions afterwards, or also for our discussion